Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mysterious Galaxy virtual event. I am Nick, the Director of Events and Digital Marketer for the bookstore. I am kind of jealous because our authors here, Jeremy Szal and Jackson Ford, are partaking in beverage, and I cannot because I am on the job. But
we won't tell anybody, dude. For real.
Who's going to find out?
It's apple juice. That's what it is. It's apple juice. So obviously I am here with our two authors of the evening, Jeremy Szal and Jackson Ford. Jeremy writes dark science fiction of a character-driven, morally gray nature. His main series is the Common Trilogy. He's written over 40 short stories, translated into 6 languages, and he carves out a living in Sydney, Australia with his family. Jackson is a South African author living in Vancouver. He spends his time working how to smash rap music, food, superpowers, and dick jokes, great, into something people will want to read. He's the author of the Frost Files series, which have been optioned for television by CBS. For those of you who are joining us tonight, thank you so much for tuning in for these two wonderful authors. Don't forget, if you haven't yet purchased any one of their books, if you click the link below to buy books and get signed book plates, they'll take you to our website where you can purchase any one of their books, and they will, oh my goodness, be giving signed book plates with your purchases. Because every purchase you make with us lets us continue doing wonderful events like this. And then don't forget, if you have any questions you want to ask either Jeremy or Jackson, you can click the link below that says ask a question, and they'll be answered later on the program. I'm going to go ahead and disappear for now and leave it to Jeremy and Jackson to take it away. All right, I'll see everyone later.
All right, let's get up to mischief.
Yo, how you feeling, dude?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
I am good. I had a chance to reread this beast in preparation. You guys need to check this shit out. This is good shit. Oh, you got the with the orange colorway too.
I do indeed. And although this is book 2, it's not out in the US yet, but it has purple editions. So yeah, this is yeah.
That's a milestone right there. Getting like the special edition.
Delicious, Jackson. Your tears are delicious.
I'm coming. I want those special edition hardcovers for myself, man. Those are gorgeous.
Yeah, the gold did them with Goldsboro. They basically did a limited 250 signed ones. So they're all signed. They're all got the sprayed edges and all of that. They're insanely good. They sold out like that. Like I wasn't expecting it. Every single one of them sold out. And I've got people messaging me like every month saying, "Where can I get them?" And I'm like, check eBay if someone's selling it secondhand for like 5 times the price. Yeah. So, but that's how it goes.
That must have been such a good feeling when they told you, yeah, that whole run is gone.
Yeah. I was very, very pleased about that. And yeah, especially with book 2 as well. I mean, there's only 250, but the fact that they all just sold out like pretty much within a week of going live was very gratifying. But so there are only 250 of them, and I have one, and no one else has. I've got
just for total clarity, you guys can buy the paperback in bookstores.
Yeah,
there's like unlimited supplies of that shit.
Yeah, there's plenty of those to go around.
So we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. For those who don't know Stormblood and don't know the story, give us, I hate the term elevator pitch, but I guess it's appropriate here. Give us the elevator pitch for what Stormblood is.
It's basically if you were to mash up Mass Effect 2, Cyberpunk 2077, and the Blade Runner sequel into a book with Red Rising, that would basically be, what Stormblood is. It's about the DNA of extinct alien race. It gets used as a drug that makes people get high on adrenaline and aggression. It's about 2 brothers on either side of this drug war. And yeah, it's a very character-driven book. Like there's a lot of action. There's this massive asteroid, all these weird dark things going on, these alien races. There's politics, there's space cults, there's gothic spaceships, but primarily it's a very, very character-driven book. It's all about found families and brotherhood and loyalty and childhood trauma and balancing those relationships within this incredibly dangerous world. And so if you're not weeping by the end, I have failed. But people have told me they have cried while reading these books. And that warms my black, rotted heart so much.
I wasn't crying by the end, but I was still like, damn, he went there. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So I want to zero in on something you said there. You were talking about the comparisons, and it was Mass Effect 2 meets Cyberpunk 2077. That's a little different to the comparison you gave me when, I first heard about this book way, way back when. You said it was Mass Effect 2 meets The Wire. And that description just made me go, wait, what? I got to hear more about this. This is some good shit.
To be honest, I hadn't actually seen The Wire when I made that comparison. I wasn't aware. Like, I thought it was very much about like the drug industry and the, and like the impact the drug has. And The Wire is very much about that, but it is primarily about the institutions and the people that support it and the ingrained politics and racial politics, specifically in Baltimore, that uphold that, which my book is not about. Let's be frank. Like, it's not about inner city suburbia politics in Detroit. No, Baltimore. Like, it's not. Like, it's a lot more aliens than there are in Baltimore, and alien drug dealers. Yeah.
You know what? Having said that, though, one of the questions that I wanted to ask, and this is a nice little segue into it, was the environment your book is set in. It's called Compass, right? This massive hollow asteroid, and I do mean massive. It's got what amounts to, and tell me if I'm describing this wrong, but it's got what amounts to several cities kind of packed inside it. And one thing I wanted to ask you was, when you have these stories set in these cities, how do you always make the reader aware that this is not just a city, this is a city inside a fucking asteroid? Like, what are the little tricks you use to kind of clue the reader into this is not your usual Earth city? This might look like it, but it's something completely different.
I always like to put my scenes in interesting settings. And I don't just mean where the whole story's taking place. I mean, individually each scene. I mean, there's no reason why, as far as I'm concerned, it's science fiction, it's space opera. There's no reason why that conversation needs to be held in a basement when you can have it on a spaceship. I mean, for the most part, unless it's too distracting. But for example, I would just have the main character. I think it's even in chapter 2 that he's actually sitting on a ship and gliding above the asteroid, and he gets a bird's eye view, basically, of the entire asteroid city with all the spaceships hovering around it, all the spaceports, all the travel entries, all the gantries and dockyards, and you can see how gigantic it is and how massive and overwhelming this setting is. And then when you're inside the asteroid, there's, because obviously there was formerly a war on, and so there's black scorch marks on the rock. There's all these different spaceports. There's all these different signs that are pointing towards places where aliens need to be for their environment. There's like little details like that. Like, I just sew them in. I don't like to just have a big, well, we're on an asteroid now, and this is what's going on. Like, I like to just integrate it smoothly into the narrative. And so just remind everyone, yes, this is where it's taking place. I mean, even a little detail like that, there's a spaceport where you can see stars and planets outside, but it's not actual raw footage. It's just a projection. It's just an image. You have to be rich if you want an actual port side, an actual view into the outside, kind of like they do in real life on cruise ships. Not everyone gets a porthole, but you can get a screen that shows you what the outside looks like. And it's that sort of little details, those little niches that show that, like, this world is a little more lived in, I think. And that's what I try to do anyway. I think your microphone's off again, mate. I can't hear you. Yeah, sorry, everyone. I think that we're having a little technical problems. Just give you 2 minutes, okay? Yeah, sorry about that, everyone. You're gonna have to tolerate me for a few minutes by myself.
I'll jump in just in case.
Thank you.
So while Jackson hops back in, about that hardcover, how come we don't get a hardcover here in the States? Why is it just paperback? That is so awesome.
Well, I would have loved to, Nick. I would have loved to, but a little thing happened called COVID, which
what's that?
Completely cocked up huge amount of deliveries and infrastructures and within publishing, and they just decided, you know what, since Goldsboro, the UK publisher that made these hardbacks, offered, we weren't going to do a hardback run, and they were just going to go with these ones. Although, I do wish you guys could have hardbacks, truly, but unfortunately, they've all been gobbled up. So.
Check 1 2. How's that?
Yeah, there you are.
I do apologize for that, guys. I have a very nice audio setup, but I think it's being hamstrung by a loose USB connection somewhere. So if it does happen again, my apologies.
You got a gremlin in your setup somewhere.
Timing. Anyway.
All right. Anyway, forget that it all happened. Let's go.
Yeah, that shit didn't happen. So when you were designing this setting, Compass, was it the kind of thing that burst into frame fully formed, or did you have to kind of hack away at it, much in the same way as they hacked away at the inside of the asteroid to kind of put this all together and realize what this world was going to look like?
Yes and no. I actually do distinctly remember sitting in one of those little Korean cafes, coffee cafes down in the city in Sydney, and thinking about the setting and was I going to set it on a city? Was I going to set it in space? And I thought, I want to do something a little more interesting, something a little more unique. And I just thought, why not a city in space? And then as I was continued writing the book, it grew and grew and grew and grew. And so I guess it kind of is, it definitely is a bit of both. Like, I would just need, okay, I've got to set this scene. I've got to set the scene somewhere interesting. And so, well, okay, the asteroid needs to expand to encompass it. No pun intended. And so I needed a really wealthy area. And so suddenly the asteroid had areas that were for lower class people. And then there were the ones where they were incredibly rich and well off. And I guess so it grew in the telling. And even now that I'm writing the third book at the moment, and I'm realizing, can I actually get away with having something this big? Like, can we actually have an entire Gothic cathedral spaceship hidden inside this asteroid? I'm not like, there's going to be someone who calls me out in the reviews who calls me out on it. Well, the science doesn't work. Well, but so I'm not sure I'm going to get away with it. But that's a problem for my editor. I wash my hands of it. Those sorts of things.
Can you have an entire Gothic cathedral spaceship and an asteroid? Every Warhammer fan listening is going, yeah, of course you fucking can, mate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because Warhammer's really concerned with the science, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but speaking about science, I mean, did you kind of look into the science of whether this was actually possible, a city inside a hollowed out asteroid when you were building the first book?
No, I didn't care. I don't care about the science. Honestly, I think I think that sounds a little bit disingenuous to some people. But I think that science fiction, one of the weaknesses perhaps of certain science fiction titles is that it's very, very much concerned with the physics and the science and the how, and exploring the fake physics and in excruciating detail. Whereas I think a lot of writers these days are more interested in the impact that it has on someone. Okay, you live on an asteroid. What does that do to your culture? Like, if you have people who like Japanese culture, Nigerian culture, Arabian culture, Swedish culture, Brazilian cultures, all Korean cultures, all coexisting in this habitat, bringing their food, their people, their language, but have been transplanted for hundreds of years and altered through time and distance, as it were. So how does that mesh with far future galactic aliens and spaceship and all this other technology? And that I'm really interested in. I mean, the main character, he comes from a planet that is Siberian and East Russian and colonized by Japanese, Koreans, and Russians. And so he's half Japanese, half Russian. And I'm never going to explain how they found the planet, how they got there, how they settled it. That's not interesting to me. What is interesting is the impact that it has. And so this character, as he's walking down the asteroid streets, how this Japanese cafe or this ramen place brings him memories and makes him think of his childhood. I find that a lot more interesting. And I think some science fiction is a little more concerned or too concerned with the math and physics side of things. I mean, honestly, fiction is like food. It depends what you're in the mood for. Oh, I think you're gone again, mate. But I think that generally fiction, to me, what I'm interested in is the characters, the characters, the human side of things. And so I'm not really too concerned with how did we get there, how did this asteroid become real. It's all about the characters that inhabit it and what it's like to explore. Go be on the streets. Hey Nick, hello again.
Hello again. Oh,
I
spoke too soon.
Hey, my video just died there. I am not having a good technical night. This is entirely my fault. Please don't blame Jeremy or Nicholas or Mysterious Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's all on me. I apologize.
Yeah.
No worries. I'm here just in case. I'm watching.
Yeah, you're going to take over.
Yeah.
But, so, Jeremy, I do want to start talking about the characters in a sec, actually. But a little sidebar, you do realize that when this shit blows up and takes off and there's a movie or a TV series, you're going to get people coming to you being like, so how did they get to the asteroid? Fill in the lore for us. Tell us about the science. You got to have that shit ready.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. If they come with the readers come and there's a blank check there, I will absolutely think of a story. I mean, like, to be honest, I did write a novelette that's actually set in this world, but set on Earth and shows the impact that this alien drug is having on Earth. But yeah, like I probably can think of it at some point, but at the moment I'm really concerned with telling, as I said, it's a character-driven story, and I want to tell the main character, Vakov's story right now. So that's what these 3 books are about.
Before we talk about Vakov, just a reminder to everybody listening, there is a button at the bottom that says Ask a Question. Please feel free to drop a question for Jeremy about Stormblood or about anything, really. And we will run through them all at the end. So please do that. So you mentioned Vakov, who is the main character. Vakov Fukusawa, I have that right?
Fukusawa, yeah.
Yeah.
Fukusawa,
So
yeah.
briefly tell us about Vakov, because he is one king hell motherfucker of a main character.
Thank you. Yeah, well, he's me, obviously. So, no,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm not that cool. I'm not that cool. And if I was like, jail. But yeah, basically he came from a planet that's, that's very Siberian culture, very East Russian, Japanese, Korean culture. He had an abusive childhood and bonded very much because of those harsh conditions. He bonded very closely with his brother. And so his childhood memories are very tied to his relationship with his sibling and the trouble that they got up to, and the trouble that they got each other out of, and how they supported each other when things were rough. And eventually he went away to war and got injected with this alien DNA that makes him now get high on adrenaline and aggression. And so, which is of course what they want, this empire wanted for the soldiers. And so even if the guy's sitting in a restaurant and he looks at someone sitting next to him with a knife, he cannot fantasize about scooping that knife. He can't fantasize about what he could do with the knife. He can't look at it because there's no such thing as a fantasy for him. If he thinks long enough about taking that knife and jamming it into your neck for a high, he will do it. But so that's that constant battle, that fight against these almost literal demons that's in his bloodstream. But of course, these literal demons also make him faster, smarter, more energetic. He can do things that no one else really can, because he could keep going for like 30 hours straight. And yeah, I mean, going back to the war, he also bonded a lot with his brothers during this war because of, I mean, look at real life. How many this sort of brotherhood that a lot of soldiers form in these terrible, inhumane conditions. And although the story's not set in war, it does kind of set the groundwork for his character. And so when he's left this war and he's back on the asteroid, he's, going about his business. When he gets told that his former squad mates are being killed off one by one, and the primary suspect is his estranged brother, and that they've had a massive falling out. And so that's where the crux of the story comes in, the relationship dynamic with them both as he tries to patch over all the damage that was done between them, because there was a lot of history and a lot of friendship that's all had a falling out because he'd left him to go to war. And so yeah, it's about the heart. That's the heart of the story, is the heart that he suffered greatly while he's investigating these people that he knew and worked and lived and fought for, and very possibly his own blood brother is the one that's killing them off. And so, yeah, and so that's pretty much where the crux of the story comes in, about balancing that loyalty, that honor. Yeah.
Yeah, we may have covered this already, but this is a story that gets you right in the feels. You got to be ready for that going in. Let's talk about the storm tech itself, which is the drug that makes Vak and his squad mates, faster, stronger, smarter, as you said. Talk about that idea. Where did that come from? Because I mean, Stormblood has so many cool ideas, and this one is really at the beating heart of it.
I actually don't know. I think I maybe thought, what would it be like if humans actually altered themselves with alien DNA or alien technology? And I've always loved the idea of aliens and how they can influence and the influence that they have on human culture, society. But I'm also really interested in the sticky, like bodily side of it. We can have aliens who are basically little green men, or like, is their DNA literally compatible with us? Like, what does our bodies react? How does it react to theirs? And what does it do to your head and your brain and your bone structure even? And so I found that really interesting to explore. I mean, again, it's not quite as much about how the science works, but I found it really interesting. Okay, what is it? If alien DNA actually makes you get high on adrenaline, and if you actually would get high on hurting someone, what would that do to a person, and how would they cope? And that's kind of where the idea kind of grew from there, I think. And as I'm writing book 2 and 3, the storm tech and Vako's relationship with the storm tech is constantly evolving, and so it's controlled him for a good long while, but now we get to see as he comes to grip with it. Does he reject it? Does he hold it closer to him? Because it's literally a weapon. A weapon. Do you use it for good or do you use it for bad? And so what are you then if you do become a weapon? Like, what are you then? Do you lose your humanity? And so I think that's where a lot of where the story it grew from. It grew from that little idea to these much bigger, broader questions.
The one thing that really got me about the idea of storm tech was that once it was explained, I was like, yes, I can absolutely see this happening. If we are in contact with extraterrestrial beings and we establish relations with them, obviously there is going to be some experimentation along these lines. Can we mix human DNA with alien DNA? What will happen? And you could absolutely see something like storm tech evolving. Maybe not a drug that makes you a super soldier, but certainly drugs in general. You can absolutely see this happening.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, going back to the science of it all a little bit, what is out there in space that is truly valuable that we can't get anywhere else? One thing, and that's drugs. And the other thing, extraterrestrial technology. Those are two things that we cannot get here. We would not be able to get on Earth. And so the idea of us being able to go out into space and getting these unique drugs, it actually being worth going out there for, that's what I find quite interesting. Yeah.
I wanted to ask a little bit about Vak's background. I mean, you've talked a bit about how he's got a combination of Russian and Japanese backgrounds. That's a really interesting combination to me. When I first read that, I was like, this is going to be really intriguing to see how he does this. What drew you to those cultures in particular?
I just find, because I'm half Polish, and so and I've got a Slavic surname, and so I'm very familiar with that culture. And I'm very, very fascinated with Japanese culture. It's something that's very, very ancient and old and very deep, but yet it's so new and ultra modern, and yet it's so ingrained in pop culture, and yet also it's got such a fascinating history. And so, I think a lot of people are fascinated with Japanese history, and I'm one of them. But more personally, I'm half, as I said, I'm half Polish and half Lebanese, and I've got my grandparents are from African and Algerian, and so I'm quite the mongrel, I'm quite the cocktail, and so I'm quite drawn to characters who are a mix of two things, who don't sit on either side of the fence, who have fingers in multiple pies, as it were. I'm very drawn to those characters and how it influences or how it doesn't influence the way they see the world, their identity, how they feel, and all these sorts of things. And so, when I was writing my character, I didn't really truly think, I want to make him mixed race because I want to, I want to be able to have more stories that aren't just about, white Anglo-Saxon English-speaking Americans, although I mean, obviously we need those sorts of stories. But I think I also wanted to just tell a story that was very personal and very close to heart. And so in doing so, I wrote a character who, like me, was mixed race, was multicultural, but also this racial element didn't interfere with his identity, his mental state in any way. I mean, he doesn't care what you look like. He'll still put a knife in your face if he thinks you're a threat to him. And he's not insecure about his racial identity. He's not worried constantly, oh, where do I sit? He's like, this is what I am. I come from both. Take it or leave it. You know, like it's nothing to be ashamed about. This is what I am. Like my first name is Russian. My surname's Japanese. So what? You know, if you've got a problem with that, it ain't my problem. And so I think it was less about what am I trying to do, and it was more about coming from a raw, more authentic place. So, yeah.
That makes total sense to me. I did wonder if it was maybe a little nod to Altered Carbon, Richard Morgan's series, where of course the protagonist is Takeshi Kovacs, which is also a blending of a Japanese first name and a Slavic surname. Was there any link there?
I actually did read Altered Carbon 6 months before I wrote Stormblood, and I've had a lot of people have called me out on it and saying that that I've ripped it off Richard's books. And I told Richard, and he thought it was rip-roaringly hilarious. He couldn't stop laughing when I told. Like, actually, one of the best reviews I ever got was from French. Someone saying it's just like Altered Carbon, right down to the character's name, except it doesn't have any of the great sex scenes. I'm so disappointed. Richard loved that.
Just FYI, this is a different beast to Altered Carbon. They are two very different books.
Yeah, absolutely. And although like it certainly was an influence on me, I think the very first person grounded noir, gritty, visceral writing and prose and texture of the world definitely was an influence on me. But the world itself and the character itself was not totally. I'd like to think I wasn't totally ripping off Richard's book. You know, I mean, in some ways I was stealing tidbits here and there, which of course we all do as authors. Don't tell anyone.
Yep.
But yeah, it was an influence, but not the only influence.
Guys, thank you for your questions. So we've got a great bunch so far. We're going to be tackling them at the end. Also, a reminder, there should be a big button on the screen below our beautiful faces that said buy books and get signed book plates. It's super important that you click that button and buy lots and lots of books from Mysterious Galaxy because they're fucking awesome. Absolutely. I wanted to ask about your action scenes. Now, obviously, Stormblood is full of fantastic action scenes and fantastic fight sequences. And while I was doing research for this chat we're having, I came across an answer you gave about your action sequences, and you used a really interesting word. You talked about them as feral, as the action is feral. Can you expand on that? Because I thought that was a really interesting idea.
I think when I do feral action scenes, it's not so much about the bird's eye view of the grand epic battle that's going on. I want you right there, smack middle of the battle, blood on your face, dirt in your teeth, with noise filling your head. If you've ever seen like the Battle of the Bastards episode of Game of Thrones, where you're basically viewing Jon Snow's POV over the shoulder, basically, and is as the eye of this hurricane. That was very, very much the inspiration for some of the battle sequences in my book, especially the last one in the flashback sequence. That was very much because it's about the war, and the main character doesn't have control of his body like the way he does in the present story. And so it's meant to be visceral and up close and in your face. And there's rockets slamming down to the ground. There's grenades showering clods of dirt up in your face. There's blurs as people coming at you, hacking their blades, and instead of hitting you, it hits a wood pillar and splinters go everywhere, and then they reel back to hit you again. It's that experience for me that I was really trying to emulate. I want people reading those scenes to be breathless and sharp and in your face. I think that's kind of the place where I go from a lot when I'm writing these scenes, and not just because I like scenes like that, but because I'm trying to emulate what the characters are going through at that very moment. what it actually would be like to be in the eye of this hurricane, to be in the middle of this battle. And so I try to make them as feral and visceral as possible. Like, you're just, random people would sometimes come smashing into you, or, the person next to you will just be cut in half by a stray rocket round or something like that. And so it's just totally unpredictable and totally in your face. I'm a massive fan of Joe Abercrombie's battle sequences for that reason. I think there are some people who don't like action scenes in books, and I can understand that because some of them don't have the edge to them. But I think that Joe is one of those people that I would read an entire book of his action scenes because they're so visceral and so up close, and they tell you a lot about the character as well. And so he does a lot of tricks with that. And so I think that's what I was trying to do with these action scenes. And as well as having these different characters in the mix in the middle of this action, some of them, how does the relationship dynamic change? Is this person you're not too sure about, you're not sure where his loyalties lie? Well, he just saved your ass by cutting the enemy's head off and pulling you out of a trap. So yeah, he's probably on my side. It's I'm trying to add a little bit more of that. So you actually get a visceral sense of what's going on the battlefield. It's not just hacking and slashing. It's actually character development as well.
It sounds like you're talking about almost embracing the chaos of just accepting the reality of, like, most battle and fight scenes are just uncontrolled and insane, and they are not clean at all. Weird shit can happen.
Although there are some in this book, especially the duel that's about the arena scene that's about halfway in this book, is a lot more controlled and a lot less chaotic, but that's very deliberate to because the main character is trying to use the storm tech to survive, and so he can't just go full tilt at it. He has to use strategy. He has to think about it. How does he feint? Does he try and show a false, trick the opponent into misreading his body language? How does he work during the scene? And so I think not all of them are quite as chaotic. I do like to have a bit of balance in the sort of action scenes I write, but as long as people like them all, I'm not fussed.
Let's talk about your background for a second, because obviously Stormblood is your first novel, and you wrote quite a few short stories before.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, you were a short story editor at one point. Yeah. It was for a podcast called Starship Sofa. Do I have that right?
Yeah, we were the first podcast to ever win the Hugo Award. Yeah.
Yeah. How did that experience, not just writing short stories, but actually editing them and selecting them, how did all of that help you write a full-length book?
I think that, not so much, again, like what you're saying, not so much the short story writing, because short stories and novels are completely different beasts, to be perfectly honest. But I think the reading short stories, I couldn't afford to maybe tiptoe around what this story. If I didn't like it, I didn't like it. And I had to very much, contextualize my tastes. Like, okay, something is very distant and very lyrical and very up in the air and beautifully written. Probably not for me. Probably not the sort of story I want to work with. Probably not the sort of story that I would write myself. But a story that's a lot more engaging and visceral and a lot more first person, has very interesting relationship dynamics between the characters. Probably something I'd be a lot more interested in seeing. If a story is very weird, it's very far future spacey, I'd probably enjoy that a lot more. And so being able to go through these stories and say, yes, this is something that's really gripping me. Yes, it's something that I'm really enjoying. Oh, this isn't gripping me. Oh, I don't really like that. It kind of really, distilled what I want as a reader and as a writer as well, what I'm trying to achieve. And so, as I said, I couldn't afford to, maybe I get to page 10 and see hopefully if it changes genres. No, on page 1, I know I'm probably not going to like this. I don't like the voice. And so I would just reject those stories. And of course, when you're writing, the first person you have to write for is yourself. Or at least that's the philosophy I take on. I try to, write for myself, like the sort of thing I would want to read. And so it kind of really hammered home for me. Yes, you need to get to the, sink your teeth in, write exactly what you want, exactly what you think is interesting, and just go take it to the hilt, basically. And also reading a lot of what not to do in the start of stories. Yeah, I mean, there's a famous story I shared with you many years ago, Rob.
Oh, yeah, that motherfucker.
You're not going to read it. We're not going to read it now, but there are things that show not to do.
Yeah. Did you get stories like that off? This was it was Smuts, this particular story,
Basically.
which we are not going to go into the details
No,
now. But
no.
Jeremy a couple of years ago shared the story that he got with me, and I'm not a prude. I don't blush easily, but reading this, I was like, Jesus Christ!
Put the air conditioning on, man. Open the windows. It's getting hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Yeah. No, I've learned many lessons. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, Stormblood is not a short book by any stretch of the imagination. It is a fairly weighty tale. I mean, when you first started writing it, given that you'd spent the past however many years being involved in short stories, were you intimidated by the idea of writing a book-length story, especially one this big?
Initially, yes, but then I started realizing that a lot of the stories I was writing were 7,000, 8,000 words, and I have to chop them back. And then a novel was only 10 times that amount, or at the bare minimum was only 10 times that amount, maybe 15. And I'm like, you know what? I'm so sick of getting these stories and really pouring so much love into it and then just hacking it back. And for me, it killed the voice. And it wasn't really and I wasn't telling the sort of stories I wanted to tell. And so I transplanted that to novels. The first draft of the book landed at about 120K. Then I went back and added the flashback sequences. And then when it sold at 139K, my editor, we beefed it up to 155K, which still isn't huge compared to what some people are writing. I mean, I do like my books, I think between the 150 and 200K length. I mean, over 200, I'm like, yeah, that's probably going to have to earn its keep. But I think that something that has that middle of the road feel to it, but still reads really tight and really fast. That's what I like the most. And so, yeah, I don't think I was really intimidated by it. I think I just took it one chapter at a time. I wasn't really outlining the story. I had the broad strokes. I knew who the villains were. I knew who the main characters were. I knew the points that it would hit. Like I knew the main characters were going to go here. This would happen to him. This is his retaliation. But other than that, I just wrote it as it came, and the story needed to be the length it needed to be. Yeah.
I want to talk about one more thing, and then we're gonna go to your guys' questions. Keep them coming; they're really good. The one thing I wanted to ask about was you do not write nice people. No one in this book is a nice person. This is not a bad thing, but you got to be aware of it going in. This is not a book about nice people. What do you like about this moral grayness? What do you find so fascinating about
Grim's nice. Grim is nice.
Oh, yeah, he's nice is not the word to describe. He's cool. Grim is very cool. Grim is Zach's best friend. He's awesome. Terrific character, by the way. But I don't know if I'd call him nice.
Okay. Well, it depends if you're it depends if you mean like Joffrey not nice or like a Enid Blyton character not nice. Like there's a spectrum here,
right.
Rob. Yeah, and I'd like to be clear. Like I'm not writing, characters who are absolutely horrible, characters who are absolute villains. The villains are not nice. Absolutely, the villains are nasty, horrible people who deserve everything that gets coming to them. But I think when I was writing this book, I just come off of writing a book where the main character was a lot more of a two goody shoes for the most part. And I wanted to explore writing this character that did these bad things for the right reasons. He broke the rules. He went off ahead. He did things that were morally ambiguous, like morally gray, but he did it because he had a reason. He did it because he believed, yes, this is the right thing to do. Yes, this will save people's lives. And he put himself in harm's way to do these not good things multiple times, but he did it because out of love for his brother, for love for his teammates. I mean, there's plenty of shows and movies and books where the main characters, on a quote unquote objective scale, aren't always good people, but by their own standards, they're incredibly moral. I mean, Vakov, his moral code is, you stand with your brothers, you suit up, you go out there, you do your mission, and you you do right by the people that care for you, and they'll do right by you. And if it comes to the crunch, you go out on a limb to save their lives. You go out on a limb to do whatever you have to do to make things right. I mean, that's not something that, would be everyone would do, but by his standards, by his worldview, it does work. And so I was very interested in exploring, can this guy, in one scene basically goes after this drug dealer and basically basically breaks his leg accidentally, to his credit. He falls on his leg and breaks it, but then he's interrogating him and he just kicks his open wound quite a few times to get the answers. But this guy is also the sort of person that sold drugs to teenagers that then turned them into suicide bombers. And so if he didn't do this, if he didn't get the answers, what would happen? I mean, it's kind of wrestling with that moral quandary of it all. And if you can still resonate with a character that does these things, I mean, I think it's a degree of honesty. You can see this character do these things that we wouldn't do ourselves, at least if we took a step back. But if we think about it, we're like, you know what? If I was in this opportunity, would I do that? I don't know. Is this the right thing to do? What would the consequences be? But you know what? I'm just going to do it. But I was with you when you did it, man. I was with you. And I think I'm quite interested in exploring that dynamic and seeing if I can still have audiences along for the ride.
You got to watch The Wire, man. You're going to love The Wire. Let's get into some questions from the rest of you guys. We've got some great ones. So to start with, here's a question. Was any character in Vakov's team particularly hard to write or get in the mind of?
Well, the Vakov's team actually isn't the main, they don't actually take a huge part of the story. I think that a lot of them are in flashbacks. But in terms of the current team that he's with, so Grimm and Catherine, I think Catherine was a little bit harder because she's a character that, by her own reckoning, is very much play it by the book, which is not what Vakov is at all. And yet she has these human moments, these lapses in judgment, where she'll do something that is very much against the rules, and in a moment like that, do it like she's not supposed to do it, and there's going to be consequences for it. But then when she thinks about it, she thinks, no, I don't regret doing that at all. Consequences be damned. But yet she still tries to stay on the narrow path, the straight and narrow path. And so I found, and wrestling with that and having her as a foil to Vakov, where he's rash and doesn't care about the rules and just does whatever he wants to do because he believes it's the right thing to do, versus someone who doesn't necessarily think it's the right thing to do, but does it because it's the done thing. I think writing that dynamic was a little bit tricky, and it's still tricky, even going up to the third book now. But yeah, I think that was quite difficult. But I'm slowly coming to grips so that I'm learning about a lot more about her, what makes her tick.
There's another great question here. If you had to spend a day with your main character, Savakov, what would you do together and where will you go? I really want to know the answer to this question.
Oh, dear. I'd probably go hang out with Vakov. He'd take me to all the really good bars, all the good gin parlors. We'd get absolutely smashed senseless. Like, just for the record, because he's got Storm Tech, he can't get drunk. Alcohol has no effect on him. So he can literally drink the bar dry and not be phased in the slightest. In fact, he does at one point do that, and Grimm is absolutely smashed by the end of it, and he's laughing as he drags him home in a hungover stupor. But yeah, so we'd probably go out to the bar together. He'd probably start a fight with someone, and because of the Storm Tech, and he'd probably pull me into the fight as well. Although I'm sure that no matter what happens, like no matter how many guys kick the absolute living crap out of us, he would never run. He'd stay by my side and give it to them too. Of course, he'd make me pay for the cab home as well. I'm sure, cab fare home. But he'd patch up the wounds and all that. But he'd make me pay for the wound dressing and all that too. Probably, I don't know.
That sounds both amazing and horrifying.
Yeah,
that's thought about it, haven't you?
Isn't that obvious?
I did notice that both you and Vakov share a passion for gin. That did jump out very strongly. So question for both of us. Jeremy, we'll do you first. If someone wanted to get to know you better, what book would you recommend they read other than your own or each other's?
That's actually really interesting.
I thought so too.
Quite possibly the Red Rising series. And I say that because although the first book is very much a YA-ish tone, especially towards the books 2 and 3 become a lot more grounded in space opera, a lot more far-flung, and yet it still never loses sight of its human element, never loses sight of the relationships between, the main characters and the main character and his team and the things that he wrestles with. The villains there are incredibly nasty and do absolutely horrible, dehumanizing things. And the main character gets absolute guts kicked out of him, very much like in my books, but he still always retains his humanity or struggles to. And yet he also will put on a suit of armor and get strapped into a spaceship and just go bulleting down to Earth into a war. And so I think marries the best of both worlds in that genre. And so it was very influential on me when I was reading him. I realized, yet this can be done. You can have a main character that does all these things and yet has a beating heart at the center of it. And the people that you're supposed to hate, the side characters, who are, for all intentions, the villains, still have a heart and still have some things that drive them. So yeah, would highly recommend it. After you read mine, of course.
I was late to the Red Rising party, but I am a convert. Absolutely incredible book series. 100% agree. For me, I would probably pick a book actually by your fellow countryman, Jeremy. Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff wrote a book called Illuminae, which is this epistolary sci-fi, which sounds awfully kind of intense, but it's just magnificent. It's one of the funniest, most balls-out brilliant books I've ever read, and it just nailed the sense of humor, and it really spoke to me. And just as purely just a technical achievement, you read it and you go, I don't know how they put this all together. I don't know how they created this thing. Illuminae is an incredible book. The whole series actually is incredible. So I think that would definitely be my pick. Right, we have a few more questions. I like this one. Aside from the hardcover release of the book, did COVID in any way change the writing or editing of Stormblood?
It was written and edited before COVID, so fortunately, no. Book 2, though, absolutely did, and it wrecked a lot of my, I had a lot of things going on at the time, and so COVID didn't help with that, and so it was very sporadic. I couldn't get out of the house. I was very trapped, and so I kind of struggled a lot especially when I was writing book 2, and especially as I wrote it, when I drafted it, and then when I was editing it, it became a very different book. And so book 2 took approximately 3 years from outlining to publication. And so, yeah, it definitely did hurt the process a little bit, but it also made sure that I had nothing better to do than to just sit home and write. Thank God Elden Ring wasn't out during COVID. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten anything done. But yeah, I think there are days where I just remember it was winter at the time here in Australia, and I was just sitting here afternoon, just writing, editing. And I think because of that, it also had a very good flow. I was very much stuck in the mindset because a lot of the scenes in book 1 are very fast and punchy. There's scenes in book 2 that are intentionally written to be a little slower. There are some scenes that are supposed to build dread and tension, and you're supposed to be afraid to turn the page. And the scene keeps on going and keeps building that dread until it all explodes. And because of COVID, because I was basically chained to my desk inside, I was able to get into that mind frame. I wasn't just basically, right, okay, scene's done, the cafe's closing, I've got to go, scene ends, and walk away. And so I think it was a very different process. And I think that I kind of do prefer writing like that, being able to deliberately build these scenes to be as long as they need to be, rather than just cutting because because the mood strikes. Yeah.
I'm with you on the Elden Ring thing. I am trying to wrap up a new draft of a project I can't talk about, and I'm doing it while playing my way through Elden Ring. And it's rough out there, man. I'm finding it very difficult to concentrate when I have Elden Ring sitting on my PS4. That game is a time suck in the worst possible way.
Man, it's amazing though.
Unbelievable game. You briefly mentioned the sequel there. We haven't talked about it because obviously this is, Stormblood is the book that's launching right now in North America. But there is a sequel that will eventually get to the United States. It is not called Stormbloodier.
No, it's not called Stormbloodier. And it's not called, the third one's not called Stormbloodiest either. Sorry, Rob.
More's the pity.
Yeah, more the pity. BlindSpace, it's already available in the UK and Australia, and will be out in Canada next month, and will be out in the US at the end of this year. Don't ask me why. I don't make the rules. But yeah, so like I think there are some readers who are a little afraid of picking up a book if it's not, the whole series isn't out yet, or they can't at least see evidence that it's going to be published at a steady rate. But book 2 is published and is on the shelves already, and book 3 is halfway written already. And so yeah, unfortunately it's not. I would love to deliver BlindSpace to all you good people, but the world has had other plans with deliveries and stuff like that. But yes, book 2, it takes it to a whole new level. It's a lot more space opera. I think some people have felt that book 1 is more of a space opera thriller, or some kind of like a cyberpunk thriller, but this is a full-on blown space opera, but with plenty of action and plenty of found families and stuff like that. Like the main cast in book 2 is, the whole story centers around the main cast, kind of like something like Kings of the Wild, and 2 of the main characters are aliens, and they were the complete opposite end of the spectrum. One of them is a very grizzled warrior with big horns and enjoys weapons that have a colossal amount of firepower, and the other is a very smaller, very petite, very fussy alien who has anxiety. So those scenes were quite fun to write, but they also have a lot of depth to them, or at least I hope they do.
On that note, guys, the most important thing you can do for authors you love is pre-order their books. If you absolutely pre-order, preferably through Mysterious Galaxy. Mysterious Galaxy are awesome. Dude, is there anything you're reading right now that you want to recommend? Another question in the chat.
A book called The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. I know Richard is a local author as well, and so he's caught up with him a few times, and he's excellent. Also a book by my mate T.R. Napa called 36 Streets. It's his debut novel. It's a cyberpunk cyberpunk set in a future Vietnam, and it is absolutely wonderful. And I blurbed it, and you should all check it out. You should buy mine first, of course, but then after that, you should definitely check out 36 Streets.
I'm reading a bunch of basketball biographies at the moment, which I would acknowledge is probably of limited interest here, but I did read a fantastic book recently called The Ninth Metal by a guy called Benjamin Percy, which is about what happens when a meteorite lands in a town in rural Minnesota and essentially allows them access to an amazing metal, and this town becomes a boom town. It's this wonderful kind of multi-points of view story that's sort of half Western, half science fiction, and it's just fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Cool. On that note, guys, thank you so much for coming to chat to myself and chat to Jeremy. Stormblood, it's this motherfucker. It's dope. It's really, really good. You should pick this shit up. I can't show you a copy of my newest book, which is out next month, because I don't actually have author copies yet. I don't even know if they exist yet, but it is called A Shitload of Crazy Powers. It is the 4th book in the Frost Files series starring Tegan Frost. This is my little part where I get to promo my own shit. And it's very different to Stormblood, but it's still very, very cool.
And I read the first book so far in the series. I got the rest, haven't read them yet, but I will get around to it. But the first one is excellent and highly enjoyable and very action-packed.
And again, if anyone out there either buys or pre-orders any of Jackson's or Jeremy's books, they will get signed book plates. We do have those in the store right now, so even if you pre-order any of their future books, we'll make sure to hold a book plate for that book. We will hold it in our wonderful vault. I imagine the Disney vault where the videos go away for years, but it's books
Nice.
and book plates.
Books are better.
Yes, I agree. And if the end of the world happens, you can read a book. Can't really watch a movie if there's no power. Come on.
Yeah, that's
True that. True that.
Oh my gosh. Jeremy and Jackson, thank you so much for doing the event. And Jeremy, I feel really bad for your main character because the way you talk about it, he gets his ass handed to him quite a bit, but he says he has a smile.
You have no idea, my friend. You have no idea.
Yeah,
I hope too soon because my backlog of to be read pile is big, but Jeremy's book is definitely on it.
all right, awesome. Yeah, Vakov, but he does it to himself. Nick. He does it to himself. It's not my fault. I keep telling him, mate, don't do that.
It's not your fault, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I keep telling him, don't run off, mate. You're going to get yourself captured. You're going to get yourself shot at, punched, or like tortured, all of it. He doesn't listen. Like, what am I supposed to do? It's not my fault.
When the main character in your head says, no, I want to do this, you got to go with it.
Yeah.
It has to be true.
I don't have a choice.
Yeah. So I laugh, but sadly I can relate. Sometimes I'm also like, no, don't do that thing. That thing is stupid. You got hurt.
Oh.
Yeah.
He does learn. There is a character arc. This is not 3 books of him just getting into sticky situations and fighting out. Like the character does evolve. I don't think I could even write 3 books that where the character didn't change in any way.
Before we do go, there is another question from viewer Mike. They want to know, where did Jeremy get the idea for a super soldier amped up on alien blood drugs?
I think I just kind of threw everything that I liked about science fiction, space opera. So, a bit of military sci-fi, space opera, aliens, visceral first-person character, and really weird, sticky bodily technology, and just mash them all together, and voila, that's a result. Writing a book is that easy. It's just alchemy.
He speaks
do
the
it too,
truth.
kids.
Yeah, it just pops out.
Yeah, absolutely, like a baby. I want it. Not that I'd know, of course, but I assume.
A book is a baby. It is your book baby. And thank you so much again, you two, and for everyone out there who's watching or who will be watching this in the future. Don't forget, if you order the book, you're also supporting the store and continuing doing wonderful events like this. Lastly, for both you gentlemen, where can people find you on the social media?
You go, Rob?
You go first, Jeremy.
Okay. Just at Twitter at Jeremy Szal. I don't really use Facebooks, but I do have an Instagram page, again, Jeremy Szal, and jeremyszal.com. And of course, I'm also on Goodreads. I'm the only Jeremy Szal around, so it shouldn't be that hard to find. And again, if you want to get signed books, absolutely go to Mysterious Galaxy, and I will keep sending them book plates as long as they allow me to. So, yeah, if you guys want to sign, I'm pretty sure you guys are one of the few stores in America that have signed copies of my books. So, go for them.
Got the exclusives. I am on Twitter and Instagram. Very simple. It's at Real Jackson Ford on both of them. And if you want to find my website, it is jacksonfordauthor.com. Nice and easy.
Let me type that in real quick. Jackson Ford author.
That's right. I tried jacksonford.com, but turns out there's a Ford dealership in Jackson, Mississippi that beat me to it.
How dare they? Don't they know
I
who you
know.
are?
Do they not know who you are?
Well, on the other hand, think of the sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah, that's true.
That is very fair. All right, gentlemen, and thank you everyone again for watching. I hope you all have a good night, and I will see you next time in a galaxy far away. Bye. Bye, Jeremy. Bye,
Peace.
Jackson.